Welcome to episode 4 of the Leeds Rhinos Podcast. It's our Q&A edition, and we've got to change location. We're over here in the North Stand Media Room for this fourth episode and our Q&A edition, looking ahead to our game against Salford this weekend, and obviously a couple of questions about last weekend's game against Wakefield. I'm delighted to be joined for this episode by our sporting director, Ian Blease. Welcome, Ian.
Good morning.
And we'll hear from Ian shortly talking about all things Leeds Rhinos. Don't forget, you can send in your questions, info@therhinos.co.uk, and every Thursday we'll have our Q&A edition, and we'll aim to get the answers for you for questions around the club. Anything going on, you give us a call, give us an email and ask us the question, and we'll get the answer for you. As we said on the Monday edition, if you've not seen that, it was great to have Chev Walker on board, our transition coach, and obviously works for the first team. As we said on that, we won't be going into team details, so if a certain P. Rowley sends in a question for what our team's going to be this weekend, we won't be answering that one, Paul, but we will give you more information around the club and what's happening here, so you get to know what's happening behind the scenes at Leeds Rhinos. We'll start with our first question, and this came on Saturday evening on Instagram, and it's from Chris Kirkness on Instagram, and he asks Ian, and you'll be able to answer this one for him, someone care to tell me what Ian Blease actually does at the club? Well, Ian, your chart.
Thanks for
what does he actually do?
Great question, by the way. Great question. Well, all things rugby. That's what I'm here to do. Started obviously in July. We've got various teams, haven't we, throughout the club? First team, reserves, academy, scholarship, and then all the ladies' teams as well. So look after all of them, all the recruitment, all my management colleagues within that team, and obviously sit on the board of directors as well at the club. So there's a bit to do in and around the club, as we can see and tell.
Obviously, a major part in the first period of your time at the club was recruitment and working on the squad for this season. Having been a player, having been an agent as well as part of your career, and then obviously administrator at Salford prior to that, you can see all sides of that process. How on a day-to-day basis is recruitment handled?
Wow, yeah, it'll take longer than half an hour to tell you the ins and outs of all that, but and especially this year, they've brought a new rule in this year where players who are out of contract the following year, they can talk to other clubs on the 1st of December. It used to be May. So that's happening right now. So our first team squad, I think we've got 6 or 7 out this year. Negotiations, obviously, we signed Mick, re-signed Mick. So we've got a few more to work on. And that takes a vast majority of a person's time to do that, especially when you negotiate in a way that we've got to bring value for money to the club in terms of the players. The agents obviously want more every year, the players want more every year, and that's a difficult balance to agree upon. And there's various facets that come into that, and statistics. We look at all of that in the background. So it's having good relationships with the agents from the onset, and then you've got the overseas players as well, who you must consider in everything, even though we've only got 7 quarter spots. So there's a lot to do on that front, and then there's a lot to do on the youth pathway side. We're working on the structure there. Chev's obviously dropped into that transition role, so we're looking at all of that. But there's a lot going on at the moment in terms of first team activity, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was great to talk to Chev on Monday about that new role. It's something that's quite common in the NRL. Brad was really keen on it. Do you see that as a key role? Because as much as we talk about recruitment, bringing players in, that younger generation, this club has been built in the past, in the 60s and the 70s, and of course the golden generation, on bringing through our own talent. Is that a key role you see?
Yeah, and I think as a salary cap becomes tighter, and obviously we've got some rewards coming to various players, and all clubs do this. At certain points you'll get a year where it's really tight because of various reasons. So that's when you certainly need your youth coming through. And obviously, working at Salford, we didn't have that complete youth pathway. When I left, they got the licence for the elite academy, so that will be good for them going forward. But it's a tough one because you want the players to come through, but you don't. We've got examples of Riley on the wing this weekend. We want him to play so many this year, but not be dumped in there because of Micah's injury. But he's got to step up now, and we want 4 or 5 coming through every year, which I think we've got with Alfie, Ben Littlewood, even though he's injured. Presley Cassell's knocking on the door, and a few others now training full time with the first team. A lot of them. So it's very important, especially for this club, to bring them guys through.
You mentioned Micah there. Probably a good example in terms of that recruitment for bringing players in. Looking at Micah, and talk us through how that process came about, how he ended up coming. Obviously, he's got this knee injury now, he's out for the season, but a big superstar name from the NRL coming across to Super League. That must have been quite a deal to get over the line.
Yeah, it took a few months to get over the line. Obviously, I think it was offered to me at the beginning of the year as well, because I knew that Para were looking to move him on. And then obviously the reshuffle we did at the back end of the year, not always the appropriate time to recruit, really. I was looking at it probably from August and looking at what we could do to bring somebody in of quality on the wing, because we had obviously one of our overseas guys out of contract. Brad obviously knew him. I knew Chris Ory's agent pretty well. I've dealt with him many times over the year. So we had a good look at him. But obviously it's a big move for him and his family to come across, so you have to sort all the accommodation out, the flights, everything like that. Make sure he's comfortable where he lives. We went and visited 3 or 4 or 5 houses to make sure he's in the right area, because I want him to be really settled down. Mike is a great guy as well, so that wasn't an easy one, but he had to work on his side of it from Para. So there's a lot of, you've got to join everything together, and that in terms of his agent working with us and then us working with the club as well over there. So thankfully we got it over the line. Just a shame that he got injured in the warm-up games. Real shame.
So you're dealing with the player, his agent, and his club where he's at?
Yeah. So obviously I did that with Brodie as well when we were at Salford, same agent as well. So we'll not liaise directly with them, but we know what's going on from there, and we have to be patient for that side of it to happen as well.
You mentioned Brodie there and your recruitment. You got a real name for yourself as a smart operator at Salford. Not just Brodie, but Jackson Hastings when you brought him. There weren't many that were prepared to take a punt on Jackson when he came over. What is it you look for when you find those sort of diamonds in the rough?
Yeah, it's again a great question. It's like you've got to have your finger on the pulse every day of the week. These things happen virtually every day of the week. You hear something. I was looking at three championship players last night, for example, who have been tipped off about, and a couple caught my eye previously in the last couple of weeks. So I guess it's just having that eye to see, and the relationships you build. Certainly from overseas, you need them strong relationships. You've got to be in with the agents over there. You've got to be careful who you deal with as well. And the same fact that you're not getting. I've always been careful and aware of sort of like some of the recruitment that I saw when I was playing at Salford. We sort of like signed players at the back end of the career, not always the best decision. You've seen it happen over here, and that's really difficult for the UK clubs to ward against. But I think I always try and look for somebody who's ambitious, and we've brought Ethan over in the last few weeks. Somebody who really wants to give it a go, and the reasons are for them to come over here are the right ones. I check out the background. And that's not always an easy thing to have a conversation about where they've been previously, because sometimes opportunities arise for people who've done wrong in the sport or the life, whatever. So we have to be careful of that. So there's a lot of considerations. But obviously being an ex-player and doing the agent side, you're sort of like ahead of the game, and every recruitment manager or sporting director or rugby director will tell you that. You have to be across everything 24/7 really. Wait for that opportunity and get in when the time's right. And obviously that's got to fall in line with who's out of contract and who wants to move on, or etc. etc.
You mentioned there the amount of time and research and everything else you need to do. Ethan's probably an example of how you have to act quickly. Micah gets that season-ending injury. We've got the quota spot. We've got the salary cap space. How does that process come about? Yeah,
well, firstly we had to get dispensation. For Micah on the cap and the quota spot, which we got off the RFL, and then I spoke to Paul Caddick, our chairman and owner, about could we, outside of obviously the cap and the budget, bring somebody else in, which thankfully he gave me permission to do. So that sort of like started the lookout and the research on who was out there. And again, got to be careful who we bring in. And are they the right person or people for the group? The lads have trained really hard in pre-season. Just to drop somebody in there to take somebody's spot is not an easy decision. And I looked at Ethan, I think about 18 months ago, 2 years ago. He got passed across me then, and I just thought I'll let him mature a little bit and get a bit more experience. He'd been training with the Titans this year. Me and Brad reviewed all the clips again, and he looked at his lifestyle and spoke to him in depth, and we thought it was the right fit. We were going to sit and wait for a little bit to see what else came about, but we thought, no, he'll be good. He'll be a good fit for the squad and the group. Put that bit of competition into that shirt in the back line, and hopefully that's what he'll do in the coming weeks.
And presumably it's got to be right for him personally as well. I mean, to move to the other side of the world on a 1-year contract, shows he's backing himself, but that suits us where we are with Micah and hopefully him coming back.
Yeah. Perfect fit, Phil, really, isn't it? When things like that do fall into place, I always think it's not luck, it's a bit of destiny maybe in there for him. And he was dead keen. He had a girlfriend over there. He said, "No, I'll come on my own. I just want to do it for the right reasons." And that's like, when somebody says that to you as a player, and then you watch him and you do your background research on his fitness and his lifestyle, he was an excellent fit for this club, I think.
Yeah, I think it was Gary Player that said the harder I practice, the luckier I get. So the amount of work goes into there to make it happen. We've got the first of our questions now, and this was a great question that came in from Dave Mule. And we went to one of the experts in the field, someone who works with here at the club, but also has a great knowledge around both codes of rugby.
Pretty good timing on this one, given what we saw with Mikulinski in last week's game against Wakefield and the treatment he received after his concussion. A very hot topic in the sport. And David asks, with the proliferation of concussions in the game, why don't players wear headgear? Especially players who've had several concussions. They seem to wear them a lot more in the NRL. Well, David, we went to the very top to get you an answer on this one. We're delighted to be joined by Professor Ben Jones from Leeds Beckett University and the lead research for the Rugby Football League. Ben, great to have you on board. It's a question often people talk, particularly when they talk about junior rugby, around headgear. What's the evidence around it?
So to address the first point around the rates of concussion have been relatively stable in men's Super League since 2016, and we actually saw a decrease last year. That was primarily due to reduced head contact. The evidence around headgear in rugby is that there has been no studies that have actually shown it reduces the risk of concussion. These debate around whether actually wearing a headgear actually increases the number of collisions you get involved in because you feel effectively safer. There was a study done in rugby union where they looked at the concussion risk for players who wore a head guard or didn't in the Premiership over a number of years, and there was no difference in the number of concussions that those players that wore headgear had versus those that didn't. I do think, though, that as we look at reducing head impacts beyond just concussions, there may be a future for headgear in the future, but at the moment the evidence isn't there to support it.
And there's a great deal of research going into this in both codes of rugby. We've seen the much publicised mouth guards and what they the day-to-day are gathering. What are we seeing changes to the game that these rules are brought in to try and address?
Yeah, so we focus on two things. We focus on the number of concussions and the risk of concussion that happens to players, and we focus on reducing head impacts, or we call them head acceleration events, which are measured by the instrumented mouth guards, because we want to reduce those where possible. The reduced tackle height that we saw in the community game and in age grade, during the evaluation of that trial, we did see a reduction in head acceleration events. So there was effectively a player's head moves less, and we also saw a reduction in head contact during that. So that's a positive thing for the game.
And do you think, David's questions about protective headgear to help against concussions, but really is education proving to be the great protector for the players, knowing to identify concussion and knowing the seriousness of it?
Yeah, so the strategy around education and making sure players are aware is something that we focused on a lot, and that's around making sure that players report when they've got a potential concussion. I do think that the biggest prevention to concussion is probably good tackle technique, and we see that is if you watch a concussion, it's rarely a good tackle that results in a concussion. It's either a player being caught, not being prepared. It's a player off balance. It's an accidental clash of heads, or it's a player going too low and then a head to knee. So I think what we're trying to do, rather than looking at specifically like equipment, so a headgear, is actually work with coaches around looking at tackle technique and actually making sure that players can perform good tackles with their heads out the way, and that will result in the lowest risk of a concussion.
Thanks, Ben. That certainly answers David's question, and continue the great work on trying to reduce these concussions and keep our game as safe as possible.
Thanks, Phil.
That's a great answer there from Professor Ben Jones, who's based up at Leeds Beckett and great partners of the club up at Leeds Beckett. We're just working with those guys, always great to see. Ian, we talked about recruitment and for the squad, and now we're obviously into the season. You're sort of the main conduit between the club and sort of the RFL and Super League and RL Commercial. Plus, you're a great support for Brad, aren't you, in terms of managing what's happening around the club?
Yeah, that's all my functions in one, I guess, there, Phil. Yeah, so it's a very busy time of year. We've got the transfer window open. We're in the season. We've started disappointingly. We didn't get the result against Wakefield, and then we move on quickly to Salford. So it's a fast-moving sport on and off the pitch.
Yeah, and I suppose the environment is key to that in terms of the lads. You know, everyone was clearly disappointed. If you've seen the behind the game feature from the Wakefield game, you can see the disappointment etched on the guys' faces afterwards. But we have to go again in round 2, and Salford won't have any pity for us, lifting the boys up and then getting them ready to go on Saturday. Yeah,
it was a real disappointment, the game, and credit to Wakefield. Sometimes in sport and life you have to accept that you've been schooled, and we definitely got schooled, I think, on Saturday. And the boys have recognised that, and the coaching staff. And you've got to keep, you've trained hard to work towards something. One game doesn't shape it. Good thing about rugby league, you get a chance to put it right the next week, and that's what the lads have got to do. The coaches are focused on that. It'll be a real interesting game against Salford because we all know what they can do as well on the day. So I know they've had a bit of turmoil in the last few weeks, but I think that'll be sorted out. And we're expecting a full strength side, and we need to be on our game to get a result there.
And as a proud Salfordian, someone who played and worked at the club, it must be tough to see what they've gone through. And we all hope, as a sport, that they can turn things around.
Yeah, I think without getting in the ins and outs of it, there's a lot going on there, isn't there? And there's a lot in the background, but hopefully they can get it sorted out. It's a big city. They deserve to get owners who will put and invest within the club and the surrounding area. I think the fans deserve that. They've been excellent over the years, and that'll give Paul and the rest of the coaching team something to get on board with. They've got a new CEO as well, so hopefully they can push that in the right direction. I think it'd be great for the game to get a strong Salford, definitely, and they've been strong over the last few years, but it makes you wonder how far and how big they can be on the edge of Manchester, and getting some of the right marketing and PR campaigns behind the club. You just never know what they can do.
We're talking about PR campaigns. Are you looking forward to the Happy Mondays on Saturday?
Oh, that'll be great. Yeah, I'll get my maracas out, shall I, and have a bit of a dance in the only if we win, obviously, in the West Stand. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, maybe get Sean Ryder into the dressing room afterwards if we manage to get that win. That could go terribly wrong. We've got a question here from Elizabeth, and Elizabeth has asked, and this is an interesting one, how much input does Brad put into his match programme article? Sometimes coaches' articles feel quite generic, and having read this week's, i.e. last week against Wakefield, it feels very much Brad's voice. Well, Elizabeth, I can let you know in that we write the programme article. It's the last page that goes into the programme each week. And thank you to everyone who buys Blue and Amber. We really want to continue making a matchday programme. I know a lot of clubs don't do it anymore for various financial reasons. We want to continue it. Please keep buying it. We can only do it if you guys want it. But great question, Elizabeth. So yeah, that's the last page that goes in. So generally we have Brad's press conference, which of course you can watch in full on the Rhinos website each week, and the article is sort of drawn out from what Brad's spoken about there, and also conversations we've had with him during the week. So it is very much Brad's voice there, and as you know, Brad is very passionate about what this team can achieve going forward. Mentioned Brad there. He's made no secret, in terms of where he's at career-wise. He's contracted for this year, but he's been very honest with you. From the day he arrived, it was 10 weeks originally, and we were really honest. Those conversations presumably are still ongoing with Brad?
Yeah, we speak regular. He's got nothing in concrete for himself yet in terms of what he wants to do. So we're open-minded as a club. I'm open-minded as a person with him. We have a good relationship. I think he's up there with the best coach I've worked with. So I'd like to keep him first and foremost. If that's whether that happens is another story, but I'll work hard to do that.
We'll go to our next question that we've got an answer for you from, and this one's about a new social media platform that the club are working with. Keen-eyed Rhinos fans might have spotted last week that we promoted a new social media channel that the club are on called We Are 8. For those asking, what is the channel? We caught up with Laura Chase, who's the Managing Director of We Are 8, and got more information for you. Hi Laura, what is We Are 8 and why is it different from other social media channels?
We Are 8 is a new social media platform that brings people the very best of what social has to offer and absolutely none of the bad stuff. So jump onto We Are 8 every day. You'll get a big old dose of inspiring and positive content. And that's coming from the world's best media brands, creators, sporting communities and charities. Importantly, there are no controlling algorithms. Our platform is totally free from toxic, hateful and harmful content and comments. And whilst you're on We Are 8, you can watch adverts if you want. And when you do, we share 60% of all of our ad revenue with people, charities, communities and the planet. So you can earn some money for yourself or you can help support the causes closest to your heart. I think the world desperately needs good social, and thankfully it's here in the form of We Are 8.
That's fantastic to hear. Why have We Are 8 become a partner of Leeds Rhinos?
We are all so delighted to be partnering with Leeds Rhinos Netball and Women's Rugby League. Sport is, as you all know, it's so important to all of us, mentally, physically. It brings communities together. And this partnership has been built to truly elevate the power of sport. So we're excited to showcase your amazing sporting stars and give the players a social home where they can experience the positive power of social media and where they can really use their influence to inspire others. We're excited to give your community a place to come together that's free from toxicity. And obviously, as I mentioned, our centralised wallet within the app itself will help us get money to the amazing Leeds Rhinos Foundation that are just doing the most incredible and obviously really important work. This partnership is a first of its kind globally. And I love that we have the opportunity with Leeds Rhinos to show others that there is a happier, healthier, fairer path forward. Excited to be reshaping sport and social media with you all, so bring it on.
That was great to hear from Laura. Laura from We Are 8. The guys were up here during the week for the netball launch, and we can't wait to see the Leeds Rhinos netball team get underway in the new look netball Super League competition later this year. And do check out We Are 8. It's a great platform. It's certainly something we're going to be using a lot this season, particularly for our women's team and our netball team. And it's one of the great things is that it raises money for good causes as well. So if you're getting a bit peeved with the other social media providers, naming no names and getting into no particular lawsuits with very rich people, check that out. And they've got a great new initiative in terms of how they're dealing with social media. Ian, in terms of the squad as a whole, presumably it's an ongoing process. You mentioned there that the recruitment last year, because of various things, you particularly when you arrived at the club, we were a bit later to it than you ideally would like. But presumably there's so many wheels within wheels that are moving. Players, whether they agree new contracts or decide to move on, suddenly frees up cap space or things like that. Yeah. It must be something that consumes so much of your time.
Yeah, it keeps you awake at night. Absolutely. We've got ongoing negotiations with existing squad members at this moment in time. I mean, it's been out there who them people are. So hopefully we can come to some form of agreements. And I think within there's 2 quota spots with players with contracts ending as well, so we're having a good look at that as well, and I've spoken to the players about that and their agents, so we're well on the way with it. And it's always good to see what's coming up on the horizon as well, and that does change. Thankfully we've got the money to do a bit more this year if we want to do as well. That's something we've got on our eye line. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks, months, whatever. We won't rush into anything like we never do. No, we always do. And then, obviously, looking towards next year, things move pretty quickly. And if something doesn't quite work out with somebody we're negotiating with now, we need to move. So we've got things lined up for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a strange world, isn't it, professional sport? It's so alien. I mean, can you imagine being in your job and everyone knowing that you might be out of work at the end of the year and then you speaking to other employers about whether you'd like to work for them? I mean, it is. But I suppose part of that is everyone having an understanding of the process and keeping it amicable, keep talking. Presumably that's the key to it, that if not going silent on each other. Yeah,
and being honest. I'm a great believer in being honest with them. I'm having real lengthy discussions with one agent at the moment, and we actually fell out a bit a couple of weeks ago, and that's natural every now and then, I guess. But we've sort of like kissed and made up now. We're back on track, and hopefully in the next couple of days we'll have that one over the line. But it does, it can, it puts a stress on you. Not in terms of it's, as you've just said, there's a stress there for the player, and the manager's there to represent the player, and I'm here to get what's best for our club. So. Sometimes maybe I'm a bit stubborn, and maybe sometimes it isn't. You've got to find that common ground and that relationship where you both agree that's best for both parties, and that's what I always try and achieve.
Our next question comes from Brad Asquith, and anyone knows Bradley Asquith. He's a regular on social media, has lots of insight and opinions on the club. So thanks for sending in the question, Brad. And he asks, you mentioned last week, so well done, Brad. First of all, you've listened to episode 2 and you've sent in your question that the club have hit their targets with season membership sales. How many have we sold? Well, in terms of a number, it's in the region of 10,000, but we have lots of different types of memberships. We have your old school season ticket members, but we also have gold members and flexi members, corporate members, players association, lots of people who may not necessarily have a ticket for every game as part of their membership. So it's not quite as simple as a round number that you might get from other clubs. However, what I will say is why we have a financial target is because budgets are important. That's how we build our business. I've been at the club a long time, and I remember when we had a long-running rivalry with a team not too far away where they'd announce figures and tickets were complimentary sometimes, or maybe £1. And really, that isn't how you build your business. We talk about hitting budgets so that we can actually help Ian plan his stuff for recruiting players and also run a business. It's an expensive business to run here at the Rhinos, so that's why last week we talked about hitting a budget. That's what we all work towards. There's a screen in our main office that's got all the figures on there, so our team are totally driven on how much we need to get in for every single game and for memberships. And that's an important part of how we run a sustainable business here at the Rhinos. That financial side of things, from a salary cap point of view and things like that. I mean, Nigel Chambers, our financial director, it's an accountant. It's a key part of any rugby department these days.
Yeah, it's a massive part of our business, isn't it, in terms of our club. And it's up to us to perform on that pitch to make sure, them gates are turning round every week, certainly at the home games and away, because we get a percentage of the away sales, I believe. So, yeah, it's a massive part of our business. And, we do thank the fans who support us, and it's very important that they keep behind us. And I know that's difficult after a loss, but we just need to shake that off now and get on to the next game.
And talk about the next game, Salford, important that the guys put last week to bed and come out with their best performance on Saturday? Yeah,
working hard now at training, obviously. It's an old cliche, and you take every game as it comes, but it's very important. Second game within the season, and we're saying we've got to win it, but that's elite sport, isn't it? Super League looks like it's going to be a tight competition this year, which is great for the game. Is the salary cap now starting to work and come to fruition? I don't know. There's a question mark there. But it looks like we've got some well-balanced teams. If Salford get the new ownership as well, I think that's virtually every club now with benefactors within their club, which we do need as well from time to time. So healthy competition, but hopefully as a club we're up there challenging for the top spots.
Yeah, and our next question comes from Andy Story, and we put it to our head of marketing data, Matt Adams. Our next question is actually, we've had it from two people, Andy Story and Rob Graham, and it reflects on last Saturday's game against Wakefield. And we'll read out Andy's question, very similar to what Rob asked. Is there any reason why we don't play March On together before the game on Saturday? If there is, can't it be played slightly before, as there's no momentum with the crowd and we were very flat on Saturday before kickoff? Well, Andy and Rob, we're going to go to our head of marketing data, Matt Adams, who pulls together and his team our match day presentation. Matt, just a question there from Andy around how we come up with the match day routine, particularly that build up to kickoff where we have the pyros and the flame boxes going off and the mixing with the music. How are those decisions made?
Yeah, well, jumping straight to kind of the marching on together question, it's not that it wasn't played at the weekend, it was more that we took a different approach to it. The band took the lead actually at the end of the entrance track by playing Marching On Together rather than us using the recorded version. This was kind of the same before the start of the second half as well. The feedback we've had from the players is that they can't really hear the crowd over the track, and we know there's nothing better than the South Stand in full voice. So we're looking to create a more organic rendition with the crowd taking the lead from the band. This isn't really a new approach from the club and something we utilise throughout the match. For example, we don't play music during breaks in play or after tries, letting the fans build the atmosphere and lead on the songs. Marching on together is certainly still a part of Rhinos and part of our game days, and we're always reviewing how and when we use it. But on the wider question, Phil, we put quite a lot of time and effort into kind of choreographing and structuring what a game day kind of looks like, and that's from kind of the gates opening all the way through to the kickoff of the game, and then how we wrap up at full time as well. It's really important that we kind of control the controllables and make sure that the game day experience is the best that the fans can have away from the 80 minutes, which we can't control in the marketing department, but we're always looking at kind of new technology and new ways of getting the fans involved and having the best game day.
And we've got a great new partnership with Q that's going to see some real fun interaction for the fans. And we've got ways for fans to use their phone and be part of the match day experience with games and using the big screen. We saw that on Saturday for the first time with the fan cam up on the big screen.
Yeah, it was a great kind of initial kind of soft launch of it on the first game. There was the AI imagery which went up where the fans could turn themselves into Leeds Rhinos men's or women's players. Some really questionable filters coming through, but got some laughs from the fans. And then Fan C is the other one, which is where you can live stream straight up onto the screen. So historically we've used the RF cam to kind of bounce around a little bit, but this is a bit more focused on those who actually want to be on the screen, being able to show what they want to do and really show their passion. Really nice kind of soft launch, but there's a few additional bits coming as well with light shows and games and quizzes. So watch this space.
Thanks, Matt, for that answer, and hopefully that answered Andy's question there. Just to wrap things up now, talking about last week's game against Wakefield, and Sean Jones, obviously our head of customer experience, was on last week's Q&A. Have a listen back if you're not. Loads of great info there from Sean about how we operate on a game day. And Sean mentioned the fans phone. Now, I've got the number for the fans phone out, and what Sean suggested last week for you is to put this into your phone so you've got it when you need it on a match day. So it's 075 00 312 832. We'll put it on the screen so you got it there. Put that in your phone, and you can help us massively on a match day, because if you see something happening in the stadium, text that number, give us your location, tell us what's happening, and we'll get our safety team there to react to that. Now, that might be someone like, we had a couple of complaints this week about people vaping in the stands or anything like that. Get in touch and we can get it sorted. It's so much harder to do it after the game. So get in touch, help us to help you, and we can certainly make a mix there. Likewise, on a match day, if you come in into the stadium and you're in the south stand or on the AMT east stand and you're coming a little bit nearer kickoff, maybe you've got caught up at home or you've decided to have that one last pint when you thought you should have really got going out of the pub. Well, if that's the case, make sure you work with our safety team and go to the ends rather than trying to get into the middle of the stand or the first formatory. That'll be a massive help for us, and it will be really courteous to your other supporters who are already in the stands ready for kickoff. You go to the ends, spread the love around the terrace, and then everyone can enjoy the game. Simple request. Hopefully you can help us with that. And then just to wrap things up, Ian, looking forward to the rest of the season. Obviously, we've built the squad for this year. Disappointing last week, we've dealt with that. But looking forward to what this team can achieve.
Yeah, I have got confidence in this team. I think obviously we did recruit late last year to strengthen the team, but I'm sort of like at one point last year, I'm thinking we might not be able to do what we were trying to do, but we've managed to do that. But it's about what they're putting out there, isn't it? We've got some great coaches now behind the scenes working really hard with them. They have done a good pre-season, but it doesn't win matches for you. Brad's aware of that, and the boys are aware of that. But we've got to do that on the pitch. But yeah, excited. I think the group can bring a lot to the city in terms of what they can play for as a player on the badge with the badge on his chest. I think they can bring a lot to the city and engage with the schools and everything they're doing behind the scenes with the foundation. So it's not just about that, it's about what we bring to the city. But really excited, and hopefully we can get some good results. But that'll take a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, which they have got. We just need to bring the best out of them over the next few weeks, and then hopefully that transpires into the juggernaut that can be Leeds Rhinos.
Well, thanks very much, Ian. And I know you're a man who's not afraid of hard work, so we'll get that on the agenda for the rest of the season. Thanks for joining us on episode 4, the Q&A edition, ahead of our trip to Salford. do keep following us for our latest podcast. We've got lots of new ideas coming up for you. And don't forget to send in your questions for next week's Q&A. It's info@therhinos.co.uk. On Monday, change of host. Jamie Jones Buchanan's going to be in the chair, and he's going to be talking to our assistant coach, Scott Grix, and hopefully looking back on a well-earned victory over at Salford. Thanks for joining us. See you soon.